Welcome to Brick by Brick with Martin Bose. So what we're going to be doing today is using a girl's stick. These drills will be beneficial for guys and girls, clearly. For these episodes, what we'll be doing is going over wall ball strategies for us to have more purposeful practice. Some of what this content will turn into, as you may already know, is a podcast. We're also going to post this as a YouTube video for those that want to see as well as listen. My goal is to get more athletes practicing outside of team time, outside of personal coaching. It's awesome to seek out help, but ultimately it comes down to how you feel about your confidence level on the field. And so when you practice on your own time, that's when things usually click for athletes. And so I want to help give context to your practice and hopefully give you some specifics to work on. I am not a girl. I play men's lacrosse, but using a women's stick is helpful in a ton of different ways. That's not what this video is about. It's just noteworthy from the start. We're going to be using a girl's stick. And we're going to start with some simple stuff. So I'm going to start off with wall ball, where I'm about 10 feet away from the wall. And before I get started, I just want to make my focal point known to you guys and also myself to make sure that I'm focusing on the right things. So to start, what I'm going to focus on is catching, okay? So to make the catch as easy as possible, having trouble because my freaking ball won't go in my pocket. All right, there we go. All right, so if you are listening to this right now and using this as a practice guide, let's get ourselves 10 feet from the wall, roughly, doesn't need to be exact. All right, a couple stick lengths away. My focus is on catching. So to make that focus prominent, what I'm gonna do is make the pass a bounce pass. So it's gonna hit the ground first and then it's gonna hit the wall. What that does is that makes a big lob on the way back, all right? So the purpose of this is to focus on the act of receiving. We want to try to understand that receiving and cradling are two very, very different things. One of the more common mistakes I see is catching into a cradle. This is a habit that I had for years. I didn't fully correct it on myself until way later in my career, and it allows us to have more options when we receive. So if I catch into a cradle, that takes both time and energy to get that back to a position where I could pass or shoot or dodge. Whereas if I just receive, where my stick just comes back with the ball, no cradle motion, that allows me to quick stick if I wanted to, or I can cradle in that position after the fact, but it gives me more options in the moment, which is important. So we're going bounce to catch here on our strong hand. Once we feel confident about this, we're going to progress it to keeping this ball in the air. So I'll start aiming up higher on the wall, and there's no bounce off the ground, just off the wall and back to my stick. My focus point hasn't really changed as far as the catch. There's just a little bit more juice on the ball, and so what I have to do as an adjustment is I have to come back with a little bit more pace. So the noise, maybe you can or maybe you can't hear it through this microphone, but the noise that I hear when the ball hits my mesh, I would like to try to minimize that noise. If that makes a really loud clanking noise, that probably means it hits plastic, and if it makes a really hard noise against the mesh, that probably means I cradled as I caught. So I want to have soft hands as I receive. So again, we're focusing on the catching, but every single rep is also a throw. So for these throws, what I want to try to do is set myself up accurately for an easy catch. So as a lefty, I'm aiming about, 3 or 4 feet above my head, but also a couple feet to my left, which allows me to keep this ball on my stick side. And so from rep to rep, looking for consistency and focusing on that nice clean catch. All right, so let's move on from there to something a little more challenging, which is going to be essentially the same thing, but one-handed, top hand only. So now we're playing wall ball with just our top hand on our stick. Our focal point with catching is exactly the same. Nothing really changes there. All right, with throwing, all this really changes is I have to do a lot more work with my left forearm. Now, if you're a righty, so I'll switch sides right now, switch over to my right hand. If you're a righty and you're doing this righty one-handed, and that's your strong hand, this probably isn't too challenging for you. It's obviously maybe a little harder than two-handed, but it's not gonna be super hard. The reason that is because you're top hand dominant naturally. So you're a right-handed person, you play lacrosse righty, and so when you do righty one-handed, it's pretty natural, all right? If you were to go over to lefty one-handed, that would be super, super uncomfortable comparatively, right? Even if you've practiced it a bunch, it's still awkward in comparison. So that's really, really noteworthy just because we want to understand which of our hands we tend to overuse, regardless of what drill we're doing, wall ball, shooting, dodging, things like that. It's going to affect how we cradle. It's going to affect how we release the ball for throw. It's going to affect how we catch, everything. And so what that means is try to utilize using your less dominant hand, and that doesn't mean your weak hand. So if I'm a righty, instead of going top hand only the whole time, what I'll practice doing is going bottom hand only. So now my left hand is on the stick, but I'm still on the right side of my body. And now I'm gonna pull and snap. This one's a little bit harder to catch, so I'll just add that right hand for the catch. And so this is what I would call bottom hand only. All right, we're working that bottom hand. So if you're a righty and you are a right hand dominant person and you play lacrosse righty, as most people are, when you practice one-handed on your right side, try to go bottom hand only because that one needs more work. When you go to lefty, bottom hand only is probably pretty easy for you because again, that's your right hand on your stick. So try going top hand only for lefty and bottom hand only for righty. All right, and those are different ways that you can utilize noticing which of your hands is more dominant, and I don't just mean strong side, weak side, I mean literally which hand you use more, because some people, like myself, are righty, but they play lefty. All right, so we want to understand some of these little subtleties. All right, so what we did so far, we've got bounce off the wall to catch, we've got in the air the whole time, two-handed, in the air the whole time, one-handed, with the understanding of trying to utilize getting reps on our non-dominant hand. Now lastly, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a face dodge cradle. This is not a face dodge. I'm not doing some elaborate footwork here. I'm doing a face dodge cradle. All that means I'm bringing it full 180 degrees around from the other side and back. So before we add this into the wall ball, let's just have a couple things that are consistent, which is going to be the stick face. All right, that is what's gonna make a 180 degree rotation. So right now it's facing upward, the butt end is out in front of my body. When I face dodge cradle, what's gonna happen is the face of my stick is now rotated 180 degrees and it's looking back up on the other side of my head, and then I'll cradle it right back. All right, so it's really important, okay, especially if you're a guy and you're using a girl stick for the first time. This one's gonna be a little bit challenging, but once you get it, what happens is the motion becomes pretty simple and you don't have to do extra work that wastes time and energy. So once we feel good about that face dodge cradle, one more little common mistake here is noticing the butt end. So I have my butt end out here in front of my body. When I face dodge cradle, it really doesn't move much, speaking about the butt end. Okay, a common mistake would be leaving the butt end close to, say, my belly button, and then when I face dodge cradle, it gets tied up in my shirt. I'm gonna try to avoid that. So once I feel comfortable with that, I'll just add it into this two-handed wall ball. So we'll go throw, catch, face dodge cradle, and back. Throw, catch, face dodge cradle, and back. And now I'll just try to get a little bit of a rhythm going. All right, I'm not doing a ton of footwork right now, but I'm also not standing flat-footed. So I've got a little bit of a bounce in my step, all right? Shifting my weight side to side, all right? Staying balanced, that's gonna be one of the keys. So we've got a couple different things that we have worked on so far here. That being said, structure helps. This game is incredibly, it's the right way of saying this, I need a better vocabulary. Creativity is extremely valuable in this game. And so when we practice, yes, structure helps to make sure that we have certain things we're focusing on, but we also want to spend time on our creativity. And so all that's going to mean for this is just try different things. One cue I'll give my athletes is try to make every single throw a little different than the last. So don't just go overhand the whole time. Start overhand, go to sidearm, try your behind the backs, try twisters, try around the worlds, all right? All right? And just see what happens as you start to get into more of a flow of rep to rep and trying different things, okay? So maybe if this is something that we haven't practiced that much, pick one, maybe two releases that you have not worked on much and just work on those, right? And then see if you can get more of a flow for your practice. But regardless, this adds that layer of, obviously, like we said, creativity, but it also adds that layer of fun and uncertainty, which that's what this is about. It's about having fun. And then when you're playing any sport, especially lacrosse, there's so many things that could happen, right? Like the ball bounces weird ways. There's these awkward scrums, especially at the youth level. You see these, big ground ball piles. That's not something that's just gonna all of a sudden go away. Sure, as you get older, things will start to clean up, and as the skill level goes up, the ball stays off the turf. But that doesn't decrease the uncertainty of what's going on out there. And so when we're practicing, tie that uncertainty in for the fact of, the ball's gonna bounce off a brick weird, and you have to react and catch it. That doesn't mean you need to go find a flatter wall. That means we need to practice reacting as we practice, okay? Well, that had a nice little rhyme. All right, so all that being said, fun and creativity, always a part of the practice plan, all right? If we're not having fun with it, what's the point, okay? So hopefully this episode is something that you can take and either listen to while you practice the wall ball. I know I'm probably getting pretty annoying at this point. You're hearing my voice for the whole episode. I understand. If it's something that you can use while you practice, or you listen to and then practice right after with a couple new focal points in mind, that's ultimately what I want to get out of this, what I want you to get out of this. If you guys have feedback for me, whether you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this on YouTube, and there's particular things you'd like to see worked on, or you have questions as to why in the world I'm using a girl stick, please reach out. I'm happy to respond, and I want to be a resource for you guys within this community. So I appreciate you spending the time and either watching or listening to this, and I'm really looking forward to creating more of this content to help you guys and to help myself get better at it, but to help you guys develop and reach your goals. That's what this is about, helping make an impact, grow the game. It's a very broad statement, but for me, what that means is giving players more context and more purpose for their practice so they can get more out of it. All right, again, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon. Peace.